In this video, I'll showcase how to leverage AI to enhance your beat making techniques. We'll look at the best tools and prompts, how to clean up an AI sample to get rid of any of that artificial noise, and even a foolproof way of hiding the fact that you ever used AI in the first place. Your secret is safe with me. So let's dive into it. Oh, and if you don't want to follow this tutorial, you can download over 60 minutes worth of drumless samples over at the Patreon. So first up, which site is best? When it comes to composing tools, you've probably heard of two names the most, Udio and Suno. These are about the best websites out there right now. Each site will create two derivatives of your musical prompt. I've read in some forums that Udio yields higher audio quality, but I haven't noticed that with my experiments, and I've used the exact same prompts on each site. With Suno giving you longer sections of work and in my experience quicker results, in today's episode we're going to focus on creating our samples with Suno. Let's talk about how to get the best from your samples. When working with Suno, if we don't want lyrics, click on Instrumental. We should note that sometimes Suno will still introduce lyrics into some genres. They call this voice hallucinations, which is when Chirp, the AI model, gets confused and sings gibberish, which is terrifying, and we're going to negate that when we look at prompts in just a second. For instrumentals, you'll want to use custom mode, which works a little bit more reliably for our purpose. In this mode, we'll be working with descriptions that have commas after every word to help dial in the genre and tone of our sample. This would be the difference between loud rock guitars in simple mode and loud, rock, guitars in custom. You can imagine with this language, you'll garner different results. Now, on the topic of language, it's important to remember that AI doesn't recognize artist names, but they do have a huge list of prompts that work well to generate similar styles to certain artists in their wiki. I'll leave the wiki in the description as it's often helpful to have open alongside. If we're creating samples for hip-hop instrumentals, think about the style of sample you want to create rather than the hip-hop genre we'll be manipulating the sample into. So for this example, soul, brass, up-tempo, disco, 70s would work well. Or for a different sample, dark, string, minor, ambient, 60s. You can probably notice that I often gravitate to mood, instrument of focus, instruction, genre, decade, foremost, and then adding more descriptors after if I need to. If you're worried about audio quality, Suno's website does say that Pro and Premium members can download high quality WAVs, but any loss of quality is due to limitations of the AI generator and not the overall compression. Now, considering the MP3s are at 192 kbps and a 48 kilohertz bit rate, and we're going to clean up the audio ourselves in Ableton, I see no reason to sign up to any premium subscriptions. All right, now comes the fun part. We have our sample, but we probably want to remove some things from it. In this example, the drums. Oh, whilst we're on the topic of creating AI works, if you do use this technique to finish a piece of music that you want to release, why not use DistroKid to get it out there? It's today's sponsor. You can use them to ensure that your music is available at every streaming platform, but you can also use their AI features to generate your own artwork and master your track too. It's an automated no-brainer, and there's a link in the description if you want to get 7% off your first year. Let's get back to the tutorial. Using a stem separator like Lalau AI can be super beneficial to keep a lot of the sonics of the sample but remove the elements we don't want. It's never perfect and will degrade our audio, but we'll look into restoring that quality soon. Once separated, we can work with the sample in finding the most interesting chops, adding any effects and arranging the drums in the empty or most applicable areas. Now that we've done all that chopping, the sample most likely doesn't pop like it originally did, so we want to restore and actually improve upon its quality. Here's what we're going to do. I'll first add an EQ to remove any lows, which we're likely going to replace with our own bass anyway, but to get rid of any artificial floor noise and boost the highs. I then add a glue compressor. This is going to bring up some of the quieter sounds, but ensure that I have a pretty level dynamic across the whole sample. I can also add a bit of soft clip in here or saturation to increase that kind of analog quality from a artificially made sound. It's not absolutely necessary, but I've found in my workflow, I've been gravitating towards the car stereo preset of the multiband device, which you do want to use in conjunction with the EQ8 because Ableton's multiband often generates some low-end rumble. If at this point there are still some spectral artifacts or artificial noise in the sample that can't be hidden by other elements in your project like the drums, bass, or other MIDI instruments, then maybe you want to look at something like iZotope's RX Spectral Denoise or Spectral Editor to get a little bit more precise in ridding some of that artificial flavoring that we don't want. But in my experiments, it hasn't made a world of difference just yet. It's kind of applying a little bit of a filter mask, but feel free to try it out for yourself. After this, I add a limiter to be safe. And then just to help out with the drums, in this example, I've used Kickstart 2. You could use a sidechain compressor, anything that gives you that kind of ducking effect. And then after that ducking effect, just a teeny bit of reverb. I've used Valhalla, but you can use any kind of reverb that you like. It's got a very quick 1 to 2 second decay with just 3 to 4% in the mix. I find that this adds a little bit of realism to this sample because the instruments prior to this were kind of composed in a vacuum. There was no reverb or room sound. Like many beat makers, from time to time we get stuck in the loop, so here it gets even better. We can drop this file back into Suno by selecting Upload File, and after continuing, we can actually extend this piece, now giving us prompts. Once again, 2 derivatives of your extended sample are created below. Finally, don't forget, if you're using something like Suno as a tool to create samples of your own and you want to have the most control to edit and embellish these musical elements, after dropping your sample into a stem separator, you could then convert these stems to MIDI using Audio to Harmony in Ableton or Flex Pitch in Logic. There's also AI audio MIDI tools online. You'll now be able to recreate those sounds heard in better quality and edit those elements for more personalization. Once again, I've included over an hour of high quality drumless samples over at the Patreon for you to use however you see fit. Thank you so much for tuning in once again, and I'll catch you next time.